Perfect.
One.
All right. Distinguished parliamentarians, dear guests, good afternoon. I am Ripsime Grigorean, Member of Parliament, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm happy and delighted to host our today's roundtable discussion. And I very much hope that you have enjoyed the event since the morning, the opening session, the opening addresses by the Foreign Minister, by the Prime Minister, and then several of the panels. And today we're going to discuss in this roundtable format the Crossroads of Peace initiative project by the government of Armenia. And the title of our roundtable discussion is Crossroads of Peace through democracy to security to prosperity. And as the title says, we're going to actually explore the possibilities, pathways for enhanced connectivity from the South Caucasus region and surrounding regions to beyond. From the South Caucasus to the Caspian region, further to the Central Asia, but also to the Mediterranean region and to Europe, and from north to south and the other way around to the Persian or Arabic Gulf. So before I pass the floor to my colleague, Sarkis Khandanyan, chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who is going to deliver the key address, just a few technical briefing. So we're going to have the key address, and afterwards, a few of our colleagues have already expressed interest in taking the floor as speakers. So everybody will be having the chance to take the floor and have intervention during the first round. Everyone, regardless of any previous and prior notification, I will give the floor to everyone who raises their hand. If we have time afterwards, I will be having questions to you, and at the same time, we can take questions also from the audience, and the parliamentarians can also address questions to each other. And then Mr. Khandanyan is going to have a closing remark, and I will be closing our discussion. We have about an hour and 10 minutes, approximately, because we need to leave the hall before 4. So I wish everyone a very productive and fruitful exchange of ideas. And with no further delay, I pass the floor to Mr. Khandanyan. Please, Mr. Khandanyan.
Thank you, Ripsime. Distinguished colleagues, members of parliament, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank you all for accepting our invitation and for your presence in Yerevan and at this discussion. It is a privilege to speak before you today at this important gathering, where we come together not only to reflect, but also to take responsibility as decision makers, as representatives of our peoples. I want to begin by thanking the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Armenia for its initiative to co-organize this side event with the National Assembly of Armenia under the auspices of the Yerevan Dialogue Forum. This event reflects our shared commitment to fostering dialogue, trust, and practical solutions in a rapidly changing world. We are here under a hopeful title, Crossroads of Peace, through democracy to prosperity and security. In front of you on the table is a map, not just of infrastructure, but of vision. It is the map of the Crossroads of Peace project, an initiative by the government of Armenia to reimagine the South Caucasus, not as a permanent theater of conflict, but as a crossroad of cooperation. For Armenia, this is more than just a theme. It is a vision, a strategy, and a commitment. Our government has launched the Crossroads of Peace project as a practical, peaceful, and future-oriented initiative. And today, earlier in the morning, you had the opportunity to hear from the Prime Minister Pashinyan about this project. The idea is simple, but transformative, to open and rebuild all regional transport and economic links connecting east to west and south to north, linking Central Asia to Europe and the Gulf and Middle East to the Black Sea and beyond, with the vision to become a hub of secure, transparent, and rule-based connectivity. Crossroads of Peace is not just a theory, it's a concrete, realistic plan to reopen and build new roads, railways, pipelines, energy corridors, and communications infrastructure across our region. It is based on 4 guiding principles: sovereignty, jurisdiction, reciprocity, and equality of all participants. There are the principles that can make regional connectivity not just possible, but sustainable. I emphasize the importance of these principles because we face challenges where certain actors seek to impose extraterritorial control or coercive conditions on connectivity projects, particularly targeting Armenia. Such approaches not only undermine peace, they defeat the very purpose of cooperation. We believe that sovereign connectivity is peaceful connectivity. Dear friends, geography is not a destiny. For years, our region has been described as unstable, too divided to cooperate, too fragile to grow. We were told that our borders are risks, not opportunities, but we do not accept this narrative. We believe that our location at the intersection of civilizations, markets, and cultures is not a burden, but a strategic asset. And yes, as a Christian nation at the eastern edge of Europe, Armenia has often been seen as a guardian of democratic values and traditions. That identity is important. But we are not only a gate. We are seeking to build a crossroad, a space where values meet interests, where dialogue meets trade, where trust can take root through practical cooperation. And this ambition is not only for Armenia, it is for the entire region. The Crossroads of Peace initiative is designed to be fully compatible with the European Union's Global Gateway and the Middle Corridor. It supports diversification of routes, resilience of supply chains, and building of regional value chains that serve our economies and our societies. The more connected we are, the more secure we all become. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is presence of interaction, of people-to-people contact, of business cooperation. Roads, railways, pipelines, and cables are not just infrastructure, they are the veins of peaceful coexistence. Every successful trade deal, every cultural exchange, every passenger or container that crosses a reopened route strengthens and enhances stability. Let us be honest, the current global context demands this kind of thinking. We live in a time of renewed fragmentation, where great power competition, wars, and economic disruptions challenge everything we have built. But in that environment, regions like ours, if we choose peace and cooperation, can offer something the world badly needs: new links, new trust, and new hope. This is where our role as parliamentarians is crucial. Peace is not made in closed rooms or distant capitals. It is built by those who are directly accountable to people. We as elected representatives carry the trust of our citizens. That gives us not only legitimacy, but also the duty to shape policies that serve their real needs: security, prosperity, and stability. I believe and hope that international organizations, global partners, and democratic institutions must support these efforts with sustainable engagement, with investment, and with encouragement for regional projects that are rooted in ownership, dialogue, and shared interest. And let me close with this. Crossroads of Peace is not just a transport map. It is the belief that even in a troubled region, peace is possible if we invest in it together, with cooperation and with the political courage to choose connection over division. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarkis, for setting the context and basically sharing our vision of the Crossroads of Peace as a possibility of connectivity over division. And I want to provide the floor to Mr. Pavel Fischer, Chair of the Foreign Affairs, Defense and Security Committee of Czechia. Please, Mr. Fischer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, this is my pleasure to be here. I'm chairing the committee of the Senate of the Czech Republic, and I'm in charge of security, defense, and foreign relations. And I think that this nexus that you highlighted between security and prosperity is a nexus which is of utmost importance, and we should pay special attention to. because without security there is no prosperity, and our citizens and our constituencies expect that we pay attention to this. As you know, as Member of Parliament, we are invited to hold into account our governments, to read, to challenge them, to observe them. But if you are in charge of foreign relations, you have to travel, you have to engage, you have to leave your office, you have to listen to others and meet people. And I have to say that this morning session opened by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia and followed by Prime Minister Pashinyan's vision of crossroads of peace was something very inspiring to me. Each time, if we look at the map of the globe, we have to replace our mind in the region that we would like to understand better the challenges and interests. And I think that today's session was a very nice immersion in the reality of today, of Armenia and of your region, that can become a real crossroad of peace and of cooperation, of security and also of prosperity. And we are ready to help you, to accompany you, and we are eager to know more about your plans and maybe challenges where we could help to meet. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I am happy that I am in Yerevan today.
Thank you, Mr. Fischer. And very well said about linking the security to prosperity. Indeed, there is also this democratic peace theory, which says that there is correlation between democracy and peace. So some are prone to think that peace is a result of democracy, and the others that democracy is a result of peace. But everybody agrees that there is this interconnectedness. And with this, I want to provide the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Zdenko Kožić from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please, Mr. You have the floor.
Hvala lijepa. Gospođe i gospodo, sve vas pozdravljam. Čuli ste, ja dolazim iz Bosne i Hercegovine.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. I greet you all. I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, as you've heard.
Ako bismo tražili neku sličnost sa Armenijom i Bosnom i Hercegovinom, odnosno regijama u kojima se nalazimo, onda je to svakako burna, na određenim razdobljima i teška povijest.
If we were trying to find the similarity between Armenia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, then it would be past, which was very troubled.
Danas naravno da nam je zajedničko i to što smo već ovdje čuli, iznaći rješenja za naše građane, za miran život i prosperitet.
Another similarity is what we have heard today is to look for a way to find dialogue and a better way of life to our citizens and our countries.
U ostvarivanju tih ciljeva svakako veliku ulogu imaju parlamenti, ta parlamentarna suradnja, jer bilo bi krivo ulogu parlamenta reducirati samo na zakonodavno tijelo.
In accomplishing those goals, the role of parliament is very important to limit parliaments as just a legislatory body.
Parlamenti bi trebali biti i parlamentarci, komunikacijski kanali za sve ljude, za regije i uopće u najširem smislu.
Should develop communication channels with all regions, all people, and in a wide sense.
Jer na takav način imamo više prilike iznaći rješenja za sve one izazove pred kojima se nalazimo.
And this is the only way we could find a solution to all problems we have.
Postoji jedan, po mom mišljenju, preduvjet da bismo takve ciljeve ostvarivali, a to je prihvaćanje i razvijanje demokracije.
One important precondition to this is acceptance and development of democracy.
Kad bismo htjeli definirati demokraciju, vjerojatno bismo dobili mnoštvo različitih definicija.
And if we were to define democracy, we would probably get many different definitions of democracy.
Međutim, sve te definicije imaju jedan zajednički nazivnik. Mir i prosperitet.
But today all definitions of democracy have one single name, peace and prosperity.
Mi u Bosni i Hercegovini to dobro znamo. Demokracija nema nekakav jedinstven recept.
We fully understand in Bosnia and Herzegovina democracy doesn't have a single unique recipe.
Pa ako pogledamo i demokratska društva u Europskoj uniji, vidjet ćemo da društveni model u jednoj zemlji ne može se tek tako prepisati za drugu zemlju.
But if we look across democratic countries in European Union, the single democratic model in one country doesn't necessarily transcribe to another country.
Nije nikakav problem, recimo ovdje u Armeniji ili kod nas u Bosni i Hercegovini, napraviti neko tradicionalno talijansko ili francusko jelo. Dovoljno je da imate recept.
It's not a problem here in Romania to have French or Italian meal. It's just enough to have a recipe.
Međutim, ne možete recept talijanskog društva ili francuskog ili bilo kojeg tek tako prepisati na svoju zemlju.
But you can't transcribe the Italian society's recipe or French or to your country.
Morate pronaći vlastiti recept.
You have to find your own recipe.
Mi u Bosni i Hercegovini to imamo kao jedan od većih političkih problema. Kako pronaći recept da zadovoljimo zahtjeve demokracije, a stvorimo društvo koje je spremno priključivati se Evropskoj uniji.
We in Bosnia and Herzegovina have a difficulty to find one single recipe which would comply the needs of society and at the same time serve us on our path towards the EU.
Osobno mislim da je rješenje u takozvanoj politici dekomodacije, da se one političke ideje koje možemo nazvati ekstremnim sa političkog, da se maknu, marginaliziraju i da tražimo zajedničko rješenje koje će uvažavati druge i drugčije.
One possible solution would be in decommodization of extreme ways, extreme politics, which don't comply with needs of societies and people all represented within the country.
Mi u Bosni i Hercegovini specifični smo po mnogo čemu i mislimo da samo određeni oblik konsocijacije, podjele vlasti može biti dobar recept za Bosnu i Hercegovinu, naravno i ono što je dobro za sve zemlje i sve regije, snažno jačanje bilateralnih odnosa.
We in Bosnia and Herzegovina think there are different ways of division of power and we don't always agree on that. But the way is to actually make
Jačanje bilateralnih odnosa.
the strengthening of bilateral dimension is very important.
Nadam se da ćemo osigurati mirno okruženje u kojima ćemo postići te ciljeve, što naravno želimo i vama.
We are sure we will ensure the peaceful environment and accomplish those goals which we also want to.
Hvala vam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Čožić, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the last name of some of our colleagues. Yes, I just want to highlight the one of the central ideas that you stated in your intervention, that democracy does not have only one recipe. Indeed, there can be different democracies, and this variety of democracies and learning from each other is what makes us strong. And for this, we need to hear voices from various parts of the world and various regions. And here, I want us to move to a bit north to Great Britain, and I want to give the floor to Mr. Andrew Rosendale Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today at this seminar and to take part in the Yerevan dialogue. This is an amazing event with friends from across Europe and the wider family of nations to show our support for Armenia. Armenia is a proud nation state with an amazing history going back many centuries. And in my lifetime, to see Armenia become a free and independent sovereign nation again is one of the things that I am incredibly proud to see happen. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, essentially where all of us want to be proudly independent, sovereign in our own land, but prosperous and free as nations. Sadly, there are too many countries in the world who believe it is their role to dominate, to establish structures which give them influence over nation states, rather than promote the idea of bilateral cooperation. Some use these international structures to gather power to themselves. Others use military means to threaten other countries and then enhance their own national interests. Armenia has been, I think, at the epicenter of this for far too long. And that's why I'm pleased to be here in Armenia for my second visit. My first was in 1999, and to see how much this country has progressed, to see the enterprise and the prosperity that has been created, to see the expansion of this country as a democratic society, certainly since 2018, and now under the leadership of Prime Minister Pashinyan, to look at how Armenia can be a crossroads for prosperity and peace in what has been a troubled region over many, many years. So that's why I'm pleased to be back in Yerevan, and pleased to say on behalf of friends back in the United Kingdom that we are with you. We stand with Armenia. I am a Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs for the Conservative Party in the UK Parliament, but we also have a cross-party group of MPs representing every political party in both the House of Commons and the upper house, which is the House of Lords. And we support Armenia, and we promote the importance of giving Armenia the chance to play its part in the evolution of the family of European nations, but to be that crossroads here in such a pivotal region of the world. And the vision your Prime Minister has demonstrated fills us with hope. And that's why I'm very pleased to be here today to offer my support of my party and of parliamentarians throughout the United Kingdom who see Armenia as a partner and a friend, a Christian country that has defended its culture, its heritage, and its way of life. And long may that continue. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. And thank you also for highlighting the peaceful transformation of Armenia taking place in 2018, and also highlighting the similarities that our countries share based on democratic values and human rights. This is the basis of our cooperation. We do truly believe in that, and we are determined to build on that. And with this, I want to pass the floor to Mr. Charles Flanagan from Ireland, who will be also sharing his views on the topic with us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and can I join with previous speakers in saying what a privilege and honour it is to have the opportunity of spending some time in Yerevan, particularly in view of the most interesting agenda that has been put forward by the organisers. I was asked at the airport last night when I arrived, had I ever been to Yerevan before, and I said, yes, I was here once, and that was in 1993. But I stopped saying that this morning because people said to me, 1993, I wasn't even born then. So I was here in 1993, a long, long time ago, and I would like to compliment everybody here in Armenia for the manner in which the country has radically and visibly improved over a range of issues since that time. I'm a member of Parliament from Ireland. Well, I was a member of Parliament in Ireland for 38 years, and I didn't stand in the last election in November. My daughter said I was finished, and it was time to hang up the boots and make way for younger people. So I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to give perhaps of my experience over the years at forums such as this. I come from Ireland, a small island in the Atlantic, on the periphery of Europe. So in my brief remarks, I'm not going to lecture anybody on the politics of this region, but I am pleased to follow Andrew and maybe give of our perspective on the politics of our region. Haven't met Andrew before, but I want to acknowledge the work that he does in the Parliament of Britain at fostering dialogue and partnership and collaboration between the islands of Great Britain and Ireland. Islands that have for almost 900 years been very much at the centre of conflict, all of which is now changed under a new dispensation, the hallmark of which has been working together. And my message today is working together. Coming from a small island, isolated. I was 15 years of age when Ireland joined the European Union in 1973. I remember the excitement in my school since then, and I have to say that the European Union remains the greatest peace process on earth. And I think we need to take that for granted, and we need to interrogate it. That's why I was a little disappointed this morning to hear Prime Minister Fico strike a negative note when in his short address he messaged a negative, what he opposed in the European Union, rather than what he proposes for the European Union. And the cornerstone of Irish foreign policy since our independence in 1922 has been multilateralism, working in the multilateral sphere. United Nations in particular. We're not members of NATO or any military organization, so we pride ourselves in our membership of the United Nations and the United Nations Charter. The Council of Europe is hugely important to us. The OSCE is hugely important to us, and also bilateral parliamentary memoranda of understanding that we strike up from time to time. And over the last 5 years, I was chairman of the Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee in our Parliament, and struck many a shared value note with Pavel. And I was delighted to hear him earlier and agree fully with what he has said regarding working together, either on a bilateral basis or through the multilateral organizations. And final point I want to make is this. We shouldn't be afraid to work out new forums and new ways of collaborating. Ireland and Armenia have one thing in common, and that is the strength of our diaspora. Ireland is a small island of 5 million people, but our diaspora worldwide is 77 million people. And we have, I think, successfully harnessed that to our benefit, particularly in times of challenge. Times of challenge, the conflict on our island, when we could draw on the support of our friends in the United States of America in particular to assist when matters were very difficult and couldn't be resolved around table ourselves. The challenge of Brexit, the withdrawal of our nearest neighbour from the European Union, presented us with a huge difficulty in Ireland, because if you stand in the Grand Place in Brussels now and look west, you will see Ireland not only as an island behind an island, but an island behind an island that's no longer a member of the European Union. So we work with our European colleagues in order to address what on the face of it is an imbalance or a challenge. And finally, in relation to our connections with the United Kingdom, Andrew didn't say that he was proud to be the chairman of a new body that we set up after our conflict ceased in the late 1990s. It was the British-Irish Interparliamentary Body. I was vice chairman of that body in the 1990s. Andrew may still be the chair of that body. And that presents him with a challenge to ensure that our shared values, or that we concentrate on agendas of what we have in common rather than what divides us. So we can work in education, in health, in environment, in energy, leave the difficult constitutional issues perhaps for another day when things are better, but concentrate on what we have in common for our people. And finally, if anybody has any questions on anything that I've said, I'd be delighted to address them, but really pleased to be back in Yerevan and wish you every success in future endeavours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Indeed, the wisest thing probably we can do is to concentrate on those areas where we can cooperate and work towards those times when the other issues will also be feasible to address. And I want to provide the floor now to Mr. Arin Karapet, Member of Parliament from Riksdag, Sweden. Please, Mr. Karapet, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ripsima. Barevdes. I had to say hi first in Armenian, it's my native language. So I will continue in Swedish. So distinguished colleagues, no, sorry.
Hopefully English, no?
English. Well, we Swiss love England, so it's not a big difference. So distinguished colleagues, guests, friends, Swedish ambassador of Sweden. Sweden is, as you know, has been a neutral country until the recently, yeah. The process was very hard for some of the parties, but not me, for us. I come from the Liberal Conservative Party. So after Russia invaded Ukraine, we Swedes said, with our Finnish friends, we have to go into NATO now. There is no neutrality left in Europe. But what we Swedes can bring to the table, not only one of the best defensive weapons in the world, which we are quite proud of, is that we have been a peace facilitator. Sweden has been a peace facilitator in many conflicts, just not in Europe. It's been in Korea, Sudan, Israel, Palestine. We have been in peacekeeping missions. So what we can bring to the table is sit around the table and try to fix the complex questions. And there is a living example when you can meet MPs from Ireland and UK sitting together, and if you look at the past, it was quite dark. But nowadays, to sit around the table and having a conversation, people are traveling between the two countries. They have trade, students are moving. Somebody's moving from London to Dublin or from Dublin to London and studying. People get married. Things that maybe were impossible maybe 50, 100 years ago is possible today. So as a Swede, I'm very proud also that Armenia is the third country that's prioritized in Europe after, of course, Ukraine and Moldova. Sweden can help and provide with the experience of rule of law, how to build independent institutions, because you will never become a democracy because you had just a democratic elections. You have to have the public trust. The institution has to be independent bodies. People have to have a trust that there is rule of law. And that is something we Swedes are quite good in. And Swedish bureaucracy is quite good when you come abroad. We as Swedes always complain about our own bureaucracy, but when we come abroad, we say, I miss the Swedish bureaucracy. Because at least I know it's right in the end. But when it comes to just not the governmental relations, I would also bring to the table economic growth. When people feel there's economic growth, that my children will get a proper education. That's why I'm happy that Sweden is one of the countries that always welcoming countries, new countries to European Union. For example, Bosnia, or I look at Montenegro. Also, Armenia is aspiring, Ukraine, Moldova. We're always open to get more family members to the European Union. And I was also want to say to the honorable gentleman, Mr. Rosendal, we both are conservatives, so I would love to see United Kingdom as a member again in the European Union, because we as Swedes need you. We cannot only rely on the Germans. So, but I have hope. I'm young, I'm 37, so maybe my grandchildren will see United Kingdom as a member of European Union. But it's just a desire. But I'm happy to be here because these gatherings, when we sit as MPs, maybe tomorrow some of us are minister. Maybe that's the person I need to be able to call. Because sometimes personal relations can solve problems. So that's why I'm very honored to be here. And I'm also happy as an Armenian to see a new Armenia grow. Because we can think that, oh, the prime minister and the foreign minister came, we had a nice event in Divin. Armenia is becoming a normal country in the world. Armenians just don't travel abroad. People from the abroad is now traveling to Armenia. So Armenia is becoming a part of the world, just not a landlocked country where everybody feels sorry about. It's time for Armenia also to be a game changer in the region. And as you know, Armenians are good, very good in the diaspora, so now it's time for the Armenians who live in Armenia to show their, and build their own fate and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Arinjan. Thank you, Mr. Karapet. And we can really not overestimate the importance of lessons learned and the lessons that we can really take advantage of from history and the very good examples that Mr. Karapet provided us with. And I want to give the floor now to Mr. Wilhelm Junila from Finland to continue with the Scandinavian experience and from the Finnish perspective. Please, you have the floor, Mr. Junila.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for our Nordic cooperation in the previous speech. So we always have a great relationship with Sweden. And also, hello from Finland to every one of you, including the ambassadors present here. In recent years, Armenia has had to endure a lot of adversity. You have had to be very resilient. That has required a lot of courage, and we admire it. I would like to share two examples of how we do in Finland in terms of being resilient. The first one concerns the parliamentary side, and then I will continue to the economic, business and civil society side. Obviously, the world is increasingly polarized, and to be resilient as a society, I would like to highlight the importance of trust on the parliamentary side, and use Finland as an example. Of course, we have a lot of opinions. We disagree on pretty much everything ideologically, or whatever there is. For example, in immigration, we have tons of different views, and normal daily politics as well. We like to disagree sometimes. All 7 parties at the parliament disagree between themselves, penal issues and so on. However, we try to find common ground on issues which concern national security. Every legislation that affects the armed forces, for example, or defensive expenditure, and especially anything that concerns our external borders. In addition to this, we also try to find and have like a unified foreign policy, despite of whoever is controlling the government. And it's of vital importance to be on the same page on these issues. And if we have a huge issue, like a huge challenge, very difficult one, we usually have a process where before beginning the legislation process, we form a parliamentary, kind of a parliamentary group that every party has a representative. It's not, the government it doesn't bind, government can do whatever it wants to, but it's usually helpful to share the views and try to find common ground, come into a unanimous decision. It's kind of a working solution to gain the trust of everyone, and most usually the government also takes that into account. And that's why there's usually no huge public or political divide on issues concerning national security, even if we would disagree on pretty much anything else. And this kind of process leads to 3 positive outcomes that makes us very resilient against the external influence. For example, the willingness to defend the country is extremely high, even in most hopeless and precarious situations. Pretty much everyone in Finland would defend the country no matter what, even if it would seem and be deemed hopeless. There's also a shared weave of national identity, so it doesn't become monopolized by any one party. And thirdly, continuity, so that the next government doesn't undo the decisions. That's how we work on issues regarding national security, and on parliamentary side can stand as one and be resilient against whatever threats might be upon us. And on civil society and business side, I would like to share an example as well. Armenia is an example of multi-layered diplomacy, which is very important to endure hybrid warfare, for example. Democratic countries like us are, however, vulnerable to these kind of threats. Many countries thought economic dependency could support stable relations, but the opposite could also be true. These dependencies could trigger the hybrid warfare. Of course, the political implications are obvious, but we must learn to see the disconnect between trade and political relations, however friendly they might appear. Most of the time, our thinking is centered around states. Of course, regulations, trade agreements, and so forth, they matter a lot, but businesses make everything possible. They too should implement strategic approaches and effectively address hybrid threats and strengthen their resilience and readiness. More authoritarian and less democratic countries may use these businesses and to pose a risk to the states that lack insight to battle these asymmetric kind of threats that have recently appeared. And these threats are ever more complex. And to concentrate on state alone, in my opinion, is kind of a recipe for disaster. The businesses, civil society need to be ready as well. And in Finland, we have kind of it's called a national defensive course, but it has nothing to do with military or well, it's of course something it has to do with national security, but it's not military course or anything like that. But it's something that people from various positions gather together, perhaps 15 to 60 people. I think there are like 4 courses a year or more, and we have had over 300 of these. And they gather together and work together, have several scenarios, threats they need to battle against. And that's how you also gain the trust between the civil society, business side, parliamentary side, and you have to kind of a role play the whole thing to be resilient in terms of threats like that. So that's the second example I wanted to share you, because it's been very useful. Everyone who has been part of the process is their trust of the state and each other has really skyrocketed, and that's also something that has built upon the society to be resilient as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Junila, for sharing with us the Finnish experience of making the society even more resilient by various means and stressing some of the vulnerabilities of modern democracies. And with this, I want to give the floor now to Mr. Michalis Livanos. Please, you have the floor from Greece.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chairwoman. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also very honored to be here in Yerevan and for the dialogue that it is a Greek word, and I want to give you all special information, but that through the dialogue in Greece, we created and we understood better what democracy is. So it's very fertile and productive to discuss, to create relationships, to move on under a certain plan when you manage to discuss even with your enemies. The problem of isolation in the relationships of two countries has always been the most important factor of aggravation and deterioration of their common and individual perspectives in these countries. So, with the example of our relationship with Turkey, a difficult relationship, even though many of our other parties in Greece, they consider us, many times we receive negative reviews, they call us reducers or compliants, but the dialogue itself doesn't make you compliant when you come to a meeting with the goals and many times red lines. Even if you don't reach to a result, at least you would have learned a lot about how the other side thinks and what is their probable goals in this discussion. So we have to discuss even if we disagree. We should discuss on a basis with rules and principles, and when the result is negative, there should always exist a channel of communication that can be open in any case, in any crisis, especially in our uncertain days. I made that comment because the word vision on the crossroads of peace contains the meaning of difficulty and unreliability. And because this vision is both, this is my strong belief, is both realistic and achievable, and also it will bring about what is the goal of every prosperous and developing society, what is peace and integrity, not only in the South Caucasus region, but also more widely in a region that has tested many conflicts and from complex risks of destabilization. So I want to make clear that from The decisions we make at every moment, depending on the surrounding atmosphere along with the environment around us, largely shape the course of the countries in the coming years. In addition, a key criterion in these decisions we make is which goals we serve. So when the goal is peace, prosperity, the development of economic activity in a region, this goal is served if our criteria in our decisions is prudence, calmness, and logic. There are many things that I wanted to say, but I will try to make a little more time for the colleagues. So, discussing how to pave the way for a better tomorrow in South Caucasus, both Greece and the European Union support the Crossroads of Peace initiative, which your Prime Minister announced at December of 24 or 23, 23, yes, so that the wider region from a theater of conflict to be transformed into a commercial hub that will connect the Black Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean Sea. Because in the end, only common prosperity silences the guns, along with the progress of the people, repels the plans of authoritarian leaders. So we fully support Armenia's orientation towards the West, and it is natural as a member of the European Union and NATO as a country to contribute with expertise and experience to the construction of this liberal democratic path. And for historical Armenia, with which as Greeks we share common values, common struggles, we will stand by it to protect its great cultural heritage in areas such as Karabakh is. Thank you very much, and I will be able, I guess, to answer to some questions. Thanks again for the very honorable contribution to this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Livanos, both for your statement of support for Armenia's foreign policy and for our efforts to establish peace in our region, but also for highlighting the importance of dialogue and regardless of the results achieved at its various phases, the importance of continuing the dialogue. And with this, I want now to provide the floor to Mr. Michele Valencise, not a member of parliament, but the president of the Institute of International Affairs. Please, Mr. Valencise, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, let me say how impressed I am by the perfect organization of this event by the Armenian authorities. It's a great proof of efficiency. Bravo. But I'm much more impressed by the message that we all heard today in the morning by the Foreign Minister and by your Prime Minister. That was a message of peace, a message of courage, and a message of pragmatism. I think you highlighted in a very clear and convincing way a process that you're developing with your neighborhood. And I am impressed by the clarity and by the determination that you showed in this process. I think that you have some advantages in this phase. And the advantages are very synthetically. First of all, the fact that you can count on the Eastern Partnership with the European Union. That is a useful framework, a very useful and fruitful framework in which we Europeans, we can accompany and support your efforts. As far as my country, as Italy is concerned, I think you have the advantage of an excellent bilateral relation with Italy, with Rome. We had the pleasure of receiving President Kandanian and some of his colleagues in the last few weeks. And that mission was a sign of how important the role of Parliament can be in the relationship with a foreign country, in the relationship with a foreign continent. So that is an advantage also given the strong pro-Armenian prejudice of our Prime Minister that promised a strong support for Armenia's European orientation. And let me say one word, since we are all, you are all, I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not a parliamentarian. Let me say one simple word about the role of Parliament. I think this is an important role. And I have to think about an episode which I will summarize in 30 seconds of our recent story. Not so recent because you were not born at the time when I'm referring this episode. This was at the beginning of the 80s where we had some still, as Europeans also, some still very delicate relations with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, with the PLO. There were some discrete contacts, but it was not recognized as an official counterpart. And I remember the Italian parliament inviting Mr. Arafat, not in agreement with the Italian government that at the time was linked by the common policy that was very careful with Arafat. And I remember Mr. Arafat coming to Rome, to Rome's parliament, with his nice gun on his belt. And I remember a very fruitful discussion with him. He put the gun aside, of course. But there was an element where it was very clear that Parliament could play a role parallel to the government, not only as a copy of the government, but as an integration, as a positive integration of the function of the government. So you don't need any piece of advice, but I encourage you to strengthen this parliamentary dimension. Since we speak about parliamentary dimension here at this table, I encourage you to strengthen, on the basis of the Italian-Armenian experience, as much as you can, this parliamentary dimension of our dialogue. It will give fruits. It is a very positive area in which you can advance. So everybody has to make his own part. You are part of a, let me say, historical process, because in a moment in which we have countries that try and think to be able to lose their problems by the use of force, this is a very good model, a very good example, not only in the region, but I think in the world of what you're doing and what you are trying to achieve through peaceful means, through negotiations, through patience, and through respect of the basic conditions of all the parties connected. So I think everybody has to make his own part. And I think we Italians, we Europeans, we have the duty to accompany your courageous process with all our sympathy and with all our hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valencise, for your words of support. And also, since you spoke about the role of parliamentarians, I want to give back the floor to our colleagues parliamentarians and maybe ask if some of the members of parliament, maybe from Montenegro or from, yes, I see already hands. Please, Mr. Subotic, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Or also, sorry to say, also, so the floor is open also for other colleagues, maybe also from Ukraine, I believe. Yes, so please.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the warm welcome here in Yerevan. I'm really enjoying it. Some of my colleagues before actually gave a great introduction to what I wanted to say, especially Honorable Flanagan or Honorable Karapet. I focused on some of the links and some of the general themes that you provided for this meeting, and I'd like to say that geopolitics is an ever-present factor in everything we do, of course. It changes, but this change is ever-present. It's a uniqueness that we have to deal with, much in the Balkans, like in this area here. And as my colleague Josic said, we can draw many parallels between the situations. So foreign policy, foreign relations, as we heard before, is always about the interest. Don't get that wrong. Problems that, what I see within these parallels, problems that both of our regions faced were problems that were not problems under the umbrella of the old country or the old ways. And I'm firmly convinced that they're not going to be problems under the new umbrella, which in the case of Montenegro is the European Union. Montenegro as the front runner really counts on European Union to be this new umbrella that will resolve many of the issues that we have in the Balkan area. What do these umbrellas show us? They show us that we are capable of resolving these issues, and we're capable of living and working together, like Mr. Flanagan said. But why don't we do it? Why outside of these umbrellas? You know, it's an issue that each one of us needs to discuss. But what I saw this morning here in Yerevan, I saw a prime minister who wants to solve that kind of problem and wants the peace and security outside these umbrellas. And I saw a country ready with a plan and with the project and ready to work on it. And many times he repeated the sentence, if our partners want it, you know, Armenia is ready. We will sign this or that treatment, and I like that. So what do we need to embrace? We need to embrace what foreign relations are there for, interests, and interests are economy and cooperation and working together. And finally, in order to do that, outside of just discussing and using the parliamentary diplomacy, which is the key factor, we need to work on our infrastructure. That's something that in the Balkan area did not work. In the old country and the under umbrella, it doesn't work still today. Many of our cooperation meetings, the most difficult thing is to reach, you know, Sarajevo from Podgorica or you know, Pristina from Mostar or things of that genre. So under this new umbrella of European Union, which we firmly strive to, Montenegro is already a part of the growth plan. We have so many funds available. And we are receiving these funds, and we're receiving closing chapters and getting closer to the EU on a merit base. So this is what I want to conclude with. Let's work together, of course. That's always a message in every arena. But at the same time, let's try to find the ways and focus on the things that unite us and focus the things we need to do together, the economic growth, the exchange of people, and I foresee a bright future for both regions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sporic. And I pass the floor to Mr. Mikisha from Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you. And it's very important to me be here, and I'm very grateful for inviting. I'm first of all in Armenia, and I love it. Second of all, sorry for my English. But what I want to say, I see and I watching now, this is real steps to peace. Not just talking, not just someone's fantasy. It's a real plan, and I see it. And it's very important in this world who move into world war. We see that one country want to peace and doing real steps. And we very support, and I hope that our relations with this, both our countries, it's make much more better than now we have. And I always pleasure to see our friends in our country. I invite you, and all you invite, please come, and thank you for invite. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mikisha. And since we're short of time, I'm inviting our last speaker, Mr. Domagoj Hajdukovic from Croatia, our ex-colleague in the parliament and now an expert. Please, you have the floor. And afterwards, we will have the closing remark by Sarkis Khandanyan. And please, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, yes, I'm an ex-parliamentarian. Now I represent Center for International Relations from Croatia. I was a parliamentarian before. Unfortunately, I cannot boast experience of my Irish colleague. So I sat in only 4 convocations of Croatian Parliament, which is approximately half of his experience, time-wise at least. But still, In the last convocation, I chaired the European Affairs Committee of Croatia, and this is when I had the opportunity to visit your beautiful country and to meet you, of course, with other colleagues. And I must say that I'm astounded by the progress that was made, because just over a year ago, Armenia was grappling with the humanitarian catastrophe that was looming. You were facing a possible foreign invasion. There was a lot of uncertainty in the air, bordering on panic even. And only in a year, we see a completely changed situation. And I must credit Mr. Pashinyan, your Prime Minister, who really had the, and pardon my French here, guts to take very, very painful and serious steps to ensure stability of Armenia. And being a former parliamentarian, I just want to mention a few words about parliamentary diplomacy. I completely agree with my learned colleague from Bosnia and Herzegovina on the importance of parliamentary diplomacy. It's not only parliamentary tourism, it's broadening your views, collecting experiences, and of course, networking. In this sense, I'm happy to say that Armenia is making a very good use of the Council of Europe, and your colleague who chairs your delegation, Ruben Rubinian, please say hi on my behalf, is doing a good job there. And finally, and I wish to focus on this, on the European perspective of the region. So somebody mentioned that Armenia is a cradle of Christianity, that in this sense you have indebted the world and our continent. I think it was the honorable colleague from United Kingdom that mentioned that. Georgia gave us wine and winemaking, so yes, this region really, indebted our continent. But European perspective for the region is not only a political issue, at least from my perspective, it's also economical issue and security issue. And to say it any other way would be, understatement and actually not living in a bubble. I was a great proponent of the enlargement of the Union when I was a parliamentarian, and still am, by the way. Of course, Croatia is focused on our immediate neighborhood, like Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have even bilateral agreements signed to this effect, because Croatia is unfortunately still the youngest member of the European Union. But perhaps with the freshest experience of joining the Union, we can help other countries who aspire to be members, including Armenia, Georgia, as well as we are helping Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. And finally, these are my final remarks. Somebody mentioned in the plenum the reforms that European Union requires of a country are not because of the European Union, it's for yourself. And there is another saying that probably sums the experience quite accurately. It is not the outcome, the end, it is the journey towards the membership. And journey towards the membership is always unique. For each country, there are different sets of challenges. But what I wish to encourage you, dear colleagues from Armenia, ask for help, ask for other experiences, collect them, because I'm sure they will be invaluable once you officially start your way towards the European Union, for which I'm really, really rooting. And for our colleagues from European member states, I urge you to support the European enlargement because, as I said, it is no longer only a political issue. It's predominantly in this new geopolitical situation that is changing rapidly, becoming a security issue for our continent as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Domagoj, Mr. Ilgovic, and please, Sarkis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ripsime, for moderating this very important discussion. And I want, first of all, to thank all of you for the words of support, and we perceive it as a support of the people of your countries, because you represent the people of your countries, and it is very encouraging to hear these words of support in Yerevan. And secondly, I want to thank you for bringing your perspectives. We heard Irish, UK perspective, which is very important. We heard the Balkan perspective. We heard the Greek perspective, and it's very, and generally the Scandinavian perspective, of course. And it's very important to hear about these success stories. And my dream is that in not a very distant future, but in a close future, I and Dimitro will be able to speak about our perspectives of peace, the Armenian perspective of peace as a success story, or the Ukrainian perspective of peace as a success story. And as I am not mistaken, it was Bertie Ahern, the former Prime Minister of Ireland, who signed the Good Friday Agreement, said that peace is not an event, it's a process. And we are in the middle of the process, and many of you mentioned the pillars of that process. It's the bilateral conversation, it's the dialogue between the parties, it's the multilateralism and the support of other actors through that process. Arjen mentioned personal relations, which is also, I believe, very important. And of course, the interparliamentary dialogue that many of you spoke about. And I think that is the reason that we decided within this diplomatic forum to also have the parliamentary dimension, because it is very important for us to meet and to talk as much as possible and then go back to our capitals and act. Thank you very much. Thank you for being in Yerevan, and enjoyed your time in Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarkis. And in my capacity, I will be very, very short. I just want to say thank you to each of you for, first of all, for coming and being here, for being present, for your participation, for sharing your perspectives, your experiences with us. And I want to thank everyone for noticing the very difficult efforts that Armenia is putting forward towards promoting peace and making peace possible in our region and beyond. And I believe that since very many of you stressed the importance of democracy, I just want to say that democracies need to support democracies, because yes, democracy is the only guarantee for peace as we see it. But democracies are also vulnerable, and democracies need the support of other democracies. So please, let's continue supporting each other. We do feel the support of all of you. So thank you very much for this, and please enjoy your time in Armenia. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. We're so privileged to have you all here to join us in this roundtable discussion dedicated to faith and freedom, strengthening religious freedom in a shifting global landscape. Thank you so much for your attendance, but first of all, let me thank our speakers who kindly agreed to join us today and to share their valuable insights. I would like to inform you that Mr. Mark Vlasik will be moderating our session. He's a senior fellow, adjunct professor of law and public policy of Georgetown University, USA. And we'll start our session with the keynote address of Mr. Sam Brownback, co-chair of the International Religious Freedom Summit. Dear guests, thank you again, and I give the floor to our honorable guest, Mr. Brownback, please.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I want to applaud you for late in the afternoon being here, and a lot of you probably came in on planes this morning and bleary-eyed, and so thanks. And if you fall asleep, just have a nice nap. I hope you enjoy your little bit of sleep. This is such a great place to have this discussion, to do this in Armenia, first Christian nation. Out my hotel window, I can see Mount Ararat, wherein the Jewish theology, Noah's Ark lands, and the human project is relaunched from here. These sites are just things in my childhood that I only dreamed of, and just were such incredible places that I just could never imagine being. And then to actually be in a place like this is just, to me, profound. But then also at the same time recognize this is a place where a genocide happened, the 1915 Armenian genocide that was just so horrific. And so this is a great discussion to have here in this place. And for Armenia to host the Yerevan dialogue and doing this, I think it's a wonderful thing for us to do and to contemplate and hopefully start to make some progress moving on forward. The Armenian genocide just really makes the point that genocides mostly happen to religious minorities. That's the unfortunate nature of them, but you can look, the Jewish Holocaust in World War II, that Hitler even cited the Armenian genocide before. He says, well, look, nobody cared about the Armenians. What are they going to care about the Jews? And that should really tell us something right there. If you don't care about this, you're going to get a lot more of it. It really should tell us something, just that casual of a phrase. We can look to more recently the Yazidis and Christians in northern Iraq and the genocide there in 2014. Again, religious minorities, small, peaceful religious communities. They weren't trying to hurt anybody. They just wanted to practice their faith. And they get genocide. Or the Uyghur Muslims in China, even now in 2021. And I've been interviewing some Uyghur women who have gone through horrific things, and the deaths. You all know what religious freedom is, or maybe you don't, and it might be good just to read real quickly what it is. It's Article 18 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, 1948 agreement. It's a paragraph. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observation. That's it. That's the 1948 agreement. That's religious freedom. It is, in my estimation, and I've been around at this for quite some period of time, the hardest human right to get right. It is the most difficult. And at the same time, I think it's the most important. I think it's the centerpiece, the cornerstone of human rights, because if you get this one right, you can build the others on top of it. You can build freedom of assembly. You can build freedom of speech and the press and other items if you can get this one right. This one's also the easiest one to manipulate by enterprising politicians. I remember, and this is just, I'm just giving you a reaction, and I'm not proud of it, but I remember seeing the first mosque go up in Wichita, Kansas. And when I drove by it, and I was going, I follow Jesus. What's this doing here? I can't build a church in Saudi Arabia. Why do these guys get to build a mosque here? I mean, and I start just kind of getting fired up. And I thought, well, wait a minute. We believe in freedom of religion. They're peaceful. They're peacefully practicing their faith. They're entitled to do this. But that's the very point. If you're an enterprising politician or leader, here's one that you can hit. And if you can hit that emotional note, you can move people, and you can get them to do crazy things. You can get them to act wild. You can get them to kill people. We're seeing the highest levels of religious persecution we've ever seen. We're seeing the highest levels of Christian persecution we've seen in the history of Christendom right now, in the world today. And if we don't, and I want to make this as really the centerpiece comment, if we don't get religious freedom for everybody, everywhere, all the time, and governments ensuring that, that's the standard, religious freedom for everybody, everywhere, all the time, governments ensuring that. If we don't get that, we will see the clash of civilizations that Huntington wrote about, and indeed, that's what we're seeing today. You're seeing the clash of civilizations. You see it a lot in Africa right now, in the Sahel region. You're seeing really militant Islam and Christianity across the Middle Belt. We're seeing it in lots of different conflict places, and you're going to get a lot more of it unless we can get governments around the world to say, okay, the dominant religion in our country is Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam, but we're going to guarantee everybody here has the right to practice freedom of religion peacefully, period, end of story. That's our job. And if we don't get to that, you're going to see these conflicts escalate and continue and grow. So what do? I think, number one, we've got to acknowledge the problem. This is a problem, and much of the time the world's just kind of looked past this one, saying, religion, we don't really care about it that much. We're going to just deal with reason. You've got to deal with religion. 80% of the world's population moves daily by what they believe in their heart. This is what moves them. You got to start dealing with them. In my estimation, part of the success of the Abrahamic Accords is its name. Abraham. It acknowledges the religious piece of it. We've got to acknowledge that this is a vital part of what we are. I think we need to relaunch the Global Human Rights Project. We've been in decline in human rights for 20 years around the world. We need to get back to that core agreement, the 1948 agreement. This is what human rights is in the world today. No more, no less. And religious freedom is a centerpiece of this. We need to acknowledge that centrality of religious freedom. And it only works if everybody gets religious freedom everywhere, all the time. It has to be this total picture of it, or it doesn't work. You can't say, well, we'll have religious freedom for the Christians here in this country, but not anybody else. Or for the Muslims, they can have it here, but nobody else gets it. And the rest of the world, we're going to force you all to do religious freedom. It's got to be everybody everywhere. It only works if it all holds together. I think we've got to start making it a part of our security negotiations. This is such a central issue to peace and violence in the world that we need to bring it into NATO, for instance, on the part of the United States, that this is part of what being a part of NATO is about, is that you guarantee religious freedom, that you stand for it, that you don't export it, religious persecution. And I think our peace treaties, we need to have, and I'll finish on this point, we need to have a peace treaty between top theologians of all the faiths. Peace treaty that says our theology does not support killing of somebody of the other faith just because they are of a different faith. Very simple. To keep the enterprising politicians or other people from saying, we're just going to use this just to point differences out and say, no, if the top theological leaders would say, our theology does not support the killing of somebody of another faith just because they're of the other faith. It could be a two-sentence treaty, but we've got to push it then around the world so that religion doesn't get manipulated as it can so easily to pursue and hurt other people. You've got an excellent panel here. Mark, I look forward to the discussion. God bless you for being here.
Ambassador, thank you for this great. My name is Mark Vlasic. I split time between teaching at Georgetown, practicing law, and being a TV producer in Hollywood. And in my Hollywood world, I actually helped create a TV series that has a Catholic priest as a positive character. And I say that because I think it's tragic how often you see in Hollywood and other places of entertainment where the priest, the faith character, is the most challenged character. And so I could not be more thrilled and more honored to be invited here to Yerevan to help lead this discussion. And particularly, as Ambassador Brownback said, at the First Christian Kingdom. I think the depth of history and the understanding of interfaith relations goes incredibly deep here. I started my career after Gibson Dunn, as one of our colleagues here on the panel, working as the youngest prosecutor at the UN War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague. And so I saw firsthand the most terrible side of humanity, the lack of humanity, by working on a very large genocide trial. And that has really galvanized my personal kind of life, separate from a lot of my professional work, to really focus on this interfaith aspect. And so I, again, want to compliment the government here for hosting us all today. What I thought I'd do is just ask our panelists to just briefly introduce themselves, but dive in a little bit to how your work and how your journey has intersected on this aspect of faith and freedom. So, Your Excellency, Mr. Minister, please start with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I welcome all of you to this important Yerevan dialogue. This is a very important platform, and it's my honor to be here and to speak among these kind of distinguished speakers. So I'm the Minister of Labor and the Social Affairs of Armenia, and if I answer to your question, how I first engaged or related to the faith and the religion. So I must begin by emphasizing like the Christianity is an inseparable part of our national narrative, which formed the foundational pillar of our national identity. So on a personal level, when to answer your question personally, from my personal experience, how I related to faith and the religion. So Ambassador Brownback's speech reminded me my family story when I, after graduating the school, I was torn between medicine and humanities, and I decided to continue my higher education in humanities and go to the Faculty of History in order to learn ancient Armenian, to read the ancient Gospels that my family inherited, my ancestors inherited. And when reading these books, so you know that every manuscript, every ancient Gospel has colophon, like a text in the end, which speaks about the story of the book, how it is written, how it preserved, etc. Almost all of the ancient manuscripts, Gospels or Bible, so it's about the history of the persecution of Christians and the moments when the Christianity was in a different and difficult condition during different periods of Armenian history. And it's important that these books saved not by chance, but by the will of people who combined by faith, and this faith of Armenians became very important source of social cohesion. So, so this journey had profound influence on my public activity. And later on, when I became the Minister of the Labor and the Social Affairs of Armenia, so it's always reminded me that all the policies should be based on on the values which will propagate, let's say, equality, and that religious freedom as a value which creates the social cohesion. So it's not for me the freedom of belief, it's not like the legal right, but it's like foundation for the social cohesion. And from the professional activity, I can say that no policy can succeed if there is no the solid pillar of the social cohesion, of the social coexistence. And especially after war, so our ministry was the main state agency one of the main state agencies, mainly to deal with the post-war consequences, to provide different kind of the social projects in order to overcome the differences, to overcome the challenges. And the social cohesion and the social responsibility towards the others was the most important thing, like to strengthen the social bonds. And I can say that it couldn't happen without continuous dialogue, empathy, and of course the courage to learn and to listen to each other. So this is how, like, my Christian identity, national identity, and personal experience shaped our public activity and my personal public activity to focus on policies in your professional life which will create cohesion, and one of the foundational pillars is fight and the sense of faith and the sense of freedom of religion, because when you look at these stories, you understand that if there was freedom of religion, if there was freedom of faith, no persecution could happen.
Thank you, Your Excellency. That was beautiful. Monsignor?
Do you want a long version or short version? Long version, it is about an hour.
we have 30 minutes left, so.
Okay, so I will give the short one. Thank you. No, I'm from Poland. I became priest in 1996, and since the first day I was working on religion. And of course, this is part of my vocation to work in the issues related to religion. And since the first, my mission was in the parish in Poland. We have in parish not only Catholics but also the believers of other religions. Some Orthodox old Russians. We had also Greek Catholics and some Muslims. So this was the first experience of working with others, cooperating with them. After that, I was sent to Rome, and after studies, I entered in the diplomatic service of the Holy See, and went for the mission in Senegal. And it was amazing experience, because from my own experience living in the almost 90% of Catholic Poland, I went to Senegal, where the Muslims were more than 90%, and Catholics just maybe 5%. But it was amazing experience of seeing how two religions can live together. Because there was a long-standing tradition of tolerance between the religions there. They were growing up together, childs playing on the same playground, Muslims and Christians. They would invite for the neighbors for the religious feast as well to participate. Amazing experience, really, and I really enjoyed it. And I tried to remember this when I was moved to Vienna, where I was appointed to our permanent mission to the international organization, especially to the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is not only on hard security, but mostly also focusing on human rights, rule of law, tolerance, non-discrimination, elections, etc. And for us, we are working all the time also in the issue, in most part of our time, in the issue of human rights, especially on freedom of religion. And we are trying to promote it. So from the experience in the Catholic Poland, to experience in the Muslim country like Senegal, to the work in favor of freedom of religion at the multilateral organization level, which is also quite important, I think, because this is the place where we advocate to change the policies, to promote the freedom of religions in the single countries. I worked after that for a short period of time in Poland, and I moved to Vatican, where now I'm Undersecretary for Relations with States, and so for bilateral relations. And I can confess to you here that almost in all our meetings we will raise the issue of religion in the country. It's sometimes it's the question of ensuring fixing some small issues if it's Catholic countries with no problem or not problems, but sometimes it's also negotiating important issue for the Catholic minority. And sometimes it's also in promoting the freedom of religion in general for everybody. Because at the end, we as the Holy See diplomacy, we are not looking for the privileges for us, but for religious freedom for everybody. And I wish that this would become reality everywhere. Thank you.
Dziękuję. Mr. Secretary.
You've missed a few preamble words in that title. I've been told it's Deputy Assistant Secretary, Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, Department of State. It's a long title. And in Washington, D.C., the longer your title, the less important you are. So you can do the math. We also have Ambassador Brownback here, very short title. Senator Brownback, very short title. So you can know who's most important here. So thank you, Senator Brownback and Ambassador Brownback, for sharing this stage with us, with me in particular. I came to the issues of religious freedom very organically, like many of my esteemed panelists, in that I am a Christian. I'm a person of faith, and I grew up in a Christian household in Florida. And I remember as a young whippersnapper, even in kindergarten, growing up in the 80s, I was a Reagan baby, as they say, going to a private Christian school kindergarten and hearing about my fellow Christians who were being persecuted around the world, particularly in this very far-off place called the Soviet Union, and how difficult it was for Christians to have access to the Bible in those days and have access to the Bible in their own language and to practice their own religion in their own form of Christianity, whatever it looks like, including here in Armenia. And so I learned very quickly as a young Christian to care about my fellow Christians. And Jesus, when he was asked what are the two greatest commands, you probably know, he said that the two greatest commands are love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and the second, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's impossible to love your neighbor as yourself if you don't care about your neighbor's freedom and his ability to practice his religion freely. Because as I love to say, compelled religion is not religion, right? You cannot force someone to believe, no matter how hard these crafty politicians and government actors may try. You cannot change a person's heart on the outside. It takes a change of heart from within. And so I cared about that issue as a Christian. I cared about my fellow brother and sister around the world as Christians, but I also cared about people who wanted to practice their own religions, whether Islam or Judaism or Hinduism or Buddhism or non-belief, whatever their heart and conscience dictated within the confines of their relationship with God as they saw it. And as Ambassador Brownback said, we saw firsthand today, I had the opportunity to go and see the Tzitza Nakaber Memorial and what it looks like when human rights breaks down in its worst extent. And it was a very moving experience. So fast forward 20-something years later from when I was a young kindergartner there in Orlando, Florida, I had the opportunity to work in a refugee camp sponsored by the UN in Jordan with Syrian refugees. And again, saw firsthand what it looks like when a government actor, a state-sponsored regime action, tramples on human rights. And the people only take it so long until eventually it boils over. And then if a government continues to trample on those rights, you see the gravest human rights abuses that we've seen in the 21st century in Syria and other places. So seeing that firsthand, working in a refugee camp, then spurred me on to go to law school, where I wanted to have an impact on not just individuals, but on policy, particularly American policy. And after a few years as a sojourner in what they call big law at a great firm in Washington, D.C., which my esteemed panelist Mark also worked at, working on sanctions from the U.S. government, along with DOJ investigations and other investigations, had the opportunity to come join this administration in what I see as one of our #1 priorities across the American government, which is religious freedom. President Trump issued one of his very first executive orders in April highlighting religious liberty. I think he said, exact quote, "We want to further the cause of religious liberty around the world, So I know that is one of President Trump's priorities. It is one of Vice President Vance's priorities. He spoke about both personally as a practicing Catholic. He had the opportunity to attend the new commencement of our favorite Pope, Pope Leo, the American Pope, at a fellow Chicagoan. I guess I sojourned there long enough to say I was, spent time in Chicago like Pope Leo. And Secretary Rubio as well, as a practicing Christian. So from the very top levels of American government down to the very low levels of American government with Jacob McGee, it's a priority of our administration, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm not just from a personal perspective, but from a broad policy perspective, ensuring that every religion, everywhere, to borrow Ambassador Brownback's phrase, has the opportunity to practice the religion that they see fit. So happy to be here with you all, and I commend our hosts for an incredible welcome and an excellent forum to discuss these important issues.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. That was fantastic. On the topic of Chicago, I have to hasten to add that I was born in Southside Chicago, just like the Holy Father, and we have an incredible guest from Chicago as well. So, Oscar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark, and it's a privilege to be here. I wear a number of hats. One hat is an advocacy hat in Washington, D.C., representing Armenian interests. Another one is representing Armenia in my city of Chicago. And finally, it's having served our church, our diocese, for 30 years, which is democratically elected. So that's something to be proud of and make note of. But I never really experienced in the United States the lack of religious freedom. Like, we took it for granted. We didn't realize, right, just growing up. And we had other challenges, though, and for most of us, our formation as Armenians in the diaspora was through the churches, through our faith, and the Polish community is organized the same way in Chicago. So that was a source of our development, growing into leadership over time, and then ultimately into activism, and activism based in our faith, based on our values, based in our morals. And that could be local, state, and ultimately with the senator and national level. And you can't help but bring your faith and formation experiences to our community work. So one issue that I personally live through sometimes is understanding this church and state, right? This separation. But I came to realize I see church and state as maybe a fence, like you can see through that fence, church and state, and work together. That's the way I see it. I don't see it as a wall. I don't think that was the intention of it, is to look and collaborate together. And Mark, you mentioned Chicago. I want to be able to mention Washington for a second. And my favorite museum in the world is the Museum of the Bible, which I visited. I encourage everyone to visit it. And I think that's a great opportunity for all of us to work together, because it goes, back to the source of everything. So, yeah, we Armenians are deep people of faith, and we're just navigating onto the future, working together. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Oscar. I think cultural heritage is important to all our respective churches and religions. And a few years ago, thanks to the invitation of the Prime Minister, I was able to come visit Armenia and start a project to do an initial exhibit at the Museum of the Bible on Armenian cultural heritage that we hope is to expand that. But recently, thanks to some of the wonderful colleagues here and folks at the Vatican, I had the chance to attend the inauguration and enthronement of Pope Leo. I was really struck by His Holiness and his remarks, both at the opening inauguration mass and also in his remarks to the ecumenical and interfaith leaders, how His Holiness spoke about the importance of ecumenical dialogue, interreligious dialogue, and human fraternity, which is a term, of course, which was used by Pope Francis as well, particularly in the document of human fraternity that was signed in Abu Dhabi. I'd love to hear any thoughts or suggestions or insights that any of you would like to do quite quickly, because we have 15 minutes left, on the importance of celebrating our collective cultural heritage, whether it be Christian heritage or other heritage, to understand how we all live together as part of our human family. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Mark. So before going to the answer to your question, so I know about your engagement with the project of like Armenian exhibition in the Museum of Bible, and I see that there is a huge potential to do more, and we hope that in future we can continue our cooperation on this project. And in general, we have a lot of potential to cooperate with the United States of America on the religious freedom, and we appreciate the Trump administration's like support and support in promoting religious freedom and in supporting the persecuted Christians. So what is cultural heritage? This is very important, first of all, for the, again, social unity, because cultural heritage is something which brings people together and which makes people to respect each other. So Armenia, being like 99% Christian population, having Christian population, we respect the cultural heritage of others. So you can see acting mosque, ancient mosque in the downtown of Yerevan, and even the 14th century religious archaeological sites like close Yerevan. And this shows that we have respect to others, we have respect to the cultural heritage of others, which we consider our cultural heritage. So this is very important to have the cultural respect on the cultural heritage, which is especially its ethnographic component. Might be, you all know that the Armenian government has a dedicated division for ethnic minorities and religious affairs under the Prime Minister's office, which tasked with coordinating policy on religion and ethnic issues. And in 2021, our parliament, maybe you know that, approved the National Minority Day as a public holiday, celebrating Armenia's ethnic and religious diversity. And this is also very important precondition for the social justice. And what is social justice? We recognize this is very important for our government's commitment, and we joined ILO's General Directors International, the global coalition of the social justice. And for social justice is not about equality, it's about the equal access to all services, irrespective to race, religion, and other differences. And we inaugurated international conference on the social justice, and this year's topic, very surprisingly, is about social justice by or with the help of the human fraternity. So the human fraternity will be the main topic of this year's the social justice conference, because we see that human fraternity is very important precondition for having social justice in society. And if you have a social justice society, you can create public good for everyone, irrespective of race, religion, and other differences.
Thank you so much. Monsignor?
Mark already explained you how the Catholic Church is engaged in ecumenical dialogue, in interreligious dialogue, so I don't have to answer it because he answered for me already. No, joking apart, thank you, Mark, for the remarks on Pope Francis and Pope Leo statements on this important issue. Before starting, I would maybe make some general remarks on the issue of protection of religious sites, because what we are noting today is that there is increasing number of attacks on synagogues, on mosques, on churches, on the other places of worship, cemeteries, and other religious sites, and this is really alarming. And most of these attacks, this violence, is with anti-religious prejudice. It is hitting the properties, not always the persons, but still Still, it is important to reaffirm that the protection of the place of worship is a direct consequence of the defense of the freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and it's a legal obligation for the authorities, state authorities, to protect it. It is independent of the political party belongings or religious affiliation. So this is, I think it's important to have it in mind. And when we are talking about the protection of the religious heritage, I think we have to start from the highest level. I mean, international level, multilateral level. So we have international organizations to work on this. UNESCO is the first one. I mentioned the OSCE, which where I worked for, but the UN also. They have the vocation. They have to work on this issue. Then we have what I already stated, the importance of the action from the governments. So they have to protect these places as well. This is the legal obligation, as I said. But after all, I think we have to also talk about the human level, the single person, which have to have respect for the other. And here we already flagged up the issue of the human fraternity. We are all brothers, each other, and we have to respect each other's convictions, but also the heritage that everybody has produced as a fruit of his own religious convictions. And we own to this, to the other, like our brothers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary?
So if you visit Washington, D.C., you can visit the amazing Museum of the Bible I've been to, and it's a fantastic exhibit with history spanning millennia, really. It's incredible. But if you also come to D.C., you can go to my favorite monument or memorial, which is the city full of memorials, as you know, if you visited, which is the Lincoln Memorial. And sometimes you go just at just the right time at night, you can catch the Lincoln Memorial when not many other people are there. I encourage you to go and to read the speeches on either side of Lincoln Memorial as you walk in and you see President Lincoln, our 16th president during the Civil War. And on the left is his very famous Gettysburg Address. And you read the words, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated the proposition that all men are created equal. All men are created equal. There in the very first sentence of his most important address is the idea that there is a divine being, God, who gave all citizens equal rights. We are all created equal. And you turn to the right, his little known, but I think more impressive work, one of the best compositions in English literature, I think, and all of English language, is his second inaugural address on the eve of the end of our destructive Civil War. And you cannot read that speech without seeing the numerous references to God, to Scripture, to the importance of divine justice. And so to envision an America where you erase religious language is really to erase American history. And to envision America where you erase religious freedom is really to erase the idea of America. I mean, America was founded on the idea of religious freedom, and religious freedom for all. And I think one of the most overlooked atrocities and really a crime against humanity of the 21st century is the destruction of such important religious markers like the Taliban, who destroyed the Buddhist statues in the early 21st century, and then ISIS in Syria, destroying religious heritage sites of many religions in Syria. And so preserving these sites for future generations so that we can educate people on what it means to have a diverse, religiously free society, which I am proud to come from a country which I think promotes and respects religious freedom for all, not just Christians, but to save those historical sites so that other generations can see the important tradition that we all have inherited as humans of these important sites that sadly are now gone. So preserving them now in our lifetimes, to your point, to your question, Mark, I think is an important priority because otherwise they could be gone someday.
Thank you so much, Oscar.
Thank you. Briefly, I was moved by the senator's comment and report that 80% of the population are moved by their faith. 80% of the population, and this interfaith dialogue, interreligious dialogue that many of our churches are engaged in is critical because, on the most basic level, Jacob said, we're at the human level, one another, and we don't say that it's my God or your God, we say it's God. So what's the issue here? Why do we need to be so disconnected? So I think this interfaith process will bring us together in a better way.
Thank you so much, Oscar. I have a bunch of questions, but I've just been informed that I need to ask you guys questions too. So please assume that my questions are brilliant, but yours are even better. So if we have a couple questions from the audience, we'll take 2 questions, just 2. We'll give it the last words to the audience, or to our panel, and I will ask the minister if you can describe a bit more about Armenia's social protection system in advancing human fraternity. That's an extra one, but let me do the right in the front and right in the back.
Thank you. My name is Ed Kessler. I'm president of the Wolf Institute in Cambridge, UK. We look at relations across the 3 faiths. Ambassador, you and I met before with Fiona Bruce, and one of the things that hasn't been said here, so I put it as a question to you all, but particularly you, Ambassador, is I wonder whether the problem is less about bringing religious leaders, top leaders together to say we believe in peace. So I'm sure if you bring Pope Leo with the Grand Mufti of Al-Azhar, with the Chief Rabbi, they're all going to agree. The issue is the radicalism within our communities. The issue is the extremism that exists within my own community, I'm Jewish, the extremism which exists amongst your community, amongst some Christian supremacists, and the extremism that exists amongst radical jihadi Islamists. And surely we need to tackle that to get to a point where we will have true freedom of religion and belief for all of us.
Thank you so much. Let's take the question in the back, and then we'll give everyone a last word here on the panel. Right in the back. Gentleman with the glasses.
Thank you very much. Well, my name is Lawrence Taveras. I'm from Dominican Republic. This is my first time here in Armenia, and it's such a wonderful opportunity to be here. And my question goes for all the panel. I remember that my whole family is Catholic, and one of their favorite saints is San Jose Maria Escrivá de Balaguer, and he always focused very much on freedom. And one of his quotes was that freedom is the most noble possession that God has given to men. And in light of this, my question goes also with the fellow here that made a question on the rise of authoritarianism. And in countries such as mine in the Dominican Republic, we see autocracies going up famous in Central America and also in South America. And in light of this, how can the Holy See actively protect and promote the gift of religious freedom in an age that is marked by rising authoritarianism, ideological polarization, and the subtle erosion of the conscience rights, even in democratic societies such as this one? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gracias. If we can just go down the panel for a minute or 2 of your last final thoughts, then we'll conclude. Ambassador Brownback, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the question here. My point is really that we need to fight theology with theology. In the Western world in particular, we're too used to, okay, we'll fight your theological argument with reason. But it doesn't work. Because you're fighting on a different plane. The one guy's shooting for the heart, the other guy's shooting for the head, and the heart's what moves people. And that's why I think it would be important if we had top theologians go into countries even where you've got these sort of things coming out and just say, our theology does not support what's happening here. And that's my sense of it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Mark. So I will start from your first question regarding the social protection system and its role on having the human fraternity. So to be short, I would say the social protection system of Armenia is about safeguarding individuals' dignity and prevent marginalization. So to provide full access and the fair services for all members of society. And this is, I think, the important precondition, and it's very important, especially during the time of the crisis which we are experiencing like during the last years. And I can say that we could manage to adequately respond to all of these challenges of the crisis because of compassionate response to all of these problems. And if there is, let's say, the commitment to human fraternity, to treating all people not as categories but as a unity. So I think this is the precondition for having the human fraternity, which is an important component of our social protection system. And I will say that so compassion we consider very important, like the component which leads to human fraternity. But this compassion is possible only if there is like consensus among individuals, government, and civil society. So this is like the secret of the success of let's say the social cohesion during very different period of time that we have been experiencing last years.
Thank you so much, Monsignor.
Thank you. I think it was mentioned here that probably getting together just 2-3 of top world leaders, they will agree on the basic principles of the peaceful coexistence of all religions. It's not enough. And I agree with you that we have to work more. And we have to, I think, work to have more leaders joining this kind of approach to the relation between the religions and trying to work to have it more and more, and after, from the top level, to do the same job at the middle level and to go to local communities as well and to work in this issue. More people engage in this dialogue, in these meetings we will have, the better we will tackle the issue of the extremism in our communities that sometimes is growing. So we have to be positive on this. And yes, sometimes we are tempted to focus on the extreme events, etc. But I think there is a lot of people working in the positive direction in this field, and we have to encourage them. We will do it definitely. For the other question, the Holy See is really engaged, trying to do it at the all level, from the international organizations, relations with single states, as well as the work with the local communities and encouraging also the priests, the local readers, to meet with the other religious leaders and to work for respect for respect to each other. Thank you.
Dziękuję. Mr. Secretary.
I appreciated Ambassador Brownback's idea of getting back to the basics, in particular the 1948 Declaration. I think is a great idea. Instead of trying to muddy the water with all sorts of other human rights that we may or may not disagree with based on your particular culture or worldview or religion, getting back to those very core basics of what it means to have human dignity and what we've all agreed on already in 1948, and coming back to the basics. For us as Americans, that means going back to the basic Bill of Rights, to our Constitution. There's a reason why freedom of religion is mentioned first in our First Amendment, because it's one of the hardest ones to get right, as Ambassador Brownback also noted. And so going back to those core ideas of religious freedom, which is core to what it means to be an American, but also core to what it means to be a human. Going back to those fundamental principles that we have enshrined in our Constitution, but it also enshrined in UN documents from 1948. So going back to the basics, and if we agree on 80% of human rights, of what they mean as human rights, then let's work on those 80% together, and let the 20% be a discussion for another day. But coming back to the basics of what it means to have human dignity enshrined in our laws and in our practice and in the enforcement of those laws is a priority of this administration, I know. So thank you all for being here and for your welcome so far.
Thank you so much. Oscar, the last word is with you.
Thank you. My comment includes a request, and that request is that we raise the visibility and attention on the protection of the religious sites, particularly the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem, which is at grave risk. And Armenians have been there for a millennium, and we're at risk in pressure from all sides that that valuable place can be lost. important religious sites, and if the Vatican, the Holy See, I know they're paying attention to it, and the State Department, everybody here, because it could be a domino effect. I mean, the loss of Christians in the Middle East is of grave concern. So maybe the Armenians first, but we don't know what's next. So we ask your prayers in that context.
Oscar. Let me just say on behalf of all the international guests here, we are incredibly grateful to be here. I think having this conversation at this time is incredibly important. And so I want to thank our hosts for having us. I want to thank all you for being here. And please join me in thanking our incredibly wonderful, thoughtful, and worldly panel. Thank you so much.